everybody. Taylor here with y'all 106.7, broadcasting from the Red Wing Shoe Studio. Today we have a special guest, Miss Carter Robertson. I'm so excited to talk to you because not only are you a singer-songwriter, but you are also the only female ever in Waylon Jennings' band.
During the Outlaw Era.
During Outlaw Era, which is a very male-dominated time.
You
so I'm
think?
sure you have a lot of stories.
Yeah.
We will get into that.
Okay.
But really quick, you have a show coming up, Waymore's Outlaws, on December 28th at Chiefs on Broadway. And you said you've played that venue before. It's pretty cool.
Yeah, it's a great venue. It really is. It's a great place for people to come out, and you get the feel of a larger show, but it's very intimate.
Yeah.
And so it's great.
And you play the hits, the fan favorites.
Yep. It's a cool show because it's really like a live documentary in a way. You have Waylon's voice introducing things. You have different people in the band and those that have gone before us. You've got video clips of them saying things. So, and then you have the people on stage that were the people who actually recorded the hits and lived the stories. So it's pretty cool.
Wow,
pretty unusual.
It sounds like such a Waylon experience.
It is.
What's your favorite song of the set list?
Oh, I always laugh at that because, oh gosh, I think probably one of my favorites. I can't pick a favorite, but the very first song I ever recorded with Waylon was "Are You Ready for the Country?" And that's the song we kick off the show with. And so I guess that'd be one of my favorites. But I've got so many memories with each one. It's a little tough to choose. It's like choosing from your children.
Yeah, and you sang them many times.
Your
Let's talk about those memories. So tell me about when you met Waylon.
Okay, yeah. I had been in a band. We used to call it West Coast Country. And so it was out in L.A., and we would play the Palomino out there every Sunday night. We were the house band. And so it was kind of country rock is basically what it was. And the guy that was producing this band I was in was Ken Mansfield, who was a big deal at the time. And he was also co-producing Jessie with Waylon. And she had that huge hit, "I'm Not Lisa." And it was like crossing over all the genres, right? So Ken liked the way I sang, and he liked the way Barney, who's the keyboard player, my husband, liked the way he played. So he thought we'd be a good fit for Jess. So the very first time I met Waylon, it was at Capitol Records in Hollywood, and it was there for a rehearsal. And we were rehearsing with Jess to do her Santa Monica debut. So I was this little hippie girl singer. Really, I was young and shy, and I was used to really rehearsing and doing all that kind of stuff. And in walks Waylon, and he was just bigger than life in my eyes. And I mean, the entourage, and there was like definitely a move in the force, when he came in. And he powered in, and then Jessie kind of came behind him, and she was like just drop dead gorgeous. I mean, you just, as a female, you're looking and I'm going, oh my gosh, she's gorgeous. And so she came in and she sat down at the piano, and I was waiting for everybody to give a count off or to go, okay, now we're going to rehearse this song and here's some charts. No, she comes in and she sits down and she just starts playing, and everybody just kind of falls in, right? And it was like being in your living room. So I'm like, okay, this is cool. And she just started playing, and we all fell in and we all sang. So that was the beginning of the relationship with Jess. And then Waylon decided to shake Nashville up, shocker. And he wanted to do an album out in L.A. So Barney and I got the call to do that album. And that was the Are You Ready for the Country album. And so the reason I said I liked the Are You Ready for the Country song is I had been sitting there for a couple of days because, you know the history about Waylon. He could be up for a while. So he was out there putting a vocal on. He was squirreling around. He'd been up for days. And I'd been sitting there probably for a day and a half just trying to figure out what was next. And he looks at me and he goes, "Hey, how about you come out here?" Oh, okay, sure. So I walk out there as this little teeny tiny thing, and here's this great big old guy, and I'm standing there, and I'm just scared to death. And I had come into Hollywood when I was young, and so I'd made a lot of mistakes. I'd fallen down, gotten back up, and here I was standing next to this unbelievable personality, and he looks down at me. He goes, "You want to do this?" And I just remember very distinctly sort of drawing a line in the sand, and I told myself, Carter, if you're going to go home, it's not going to be because you choked, not this time. And so I stepped up to the mic and I sang, and it was "Are You Ready for the Country?" And so that began a relationship that continues to this day with Jess and with his son Shooter and all the musician family that he put together. Pretty rich.
Yeah, what a great story. I was just imagining it all vividly in my mind. I got chills when you said you stepped up to the mic.
Yeah.
What a cool story. So after that, he joined my band. He asked you to join the band. When did we go on the road?
Yeah, that was cool. He asked Barney and I. He said, "Hey, we're gonna do a little tour, and so how about you? We think you'd be great for Jess. She's gonna need a band." And so he said, "Well, can we think about it maybe?" And he goes, "Yeah, sure. We'll see you in the morning." Yeah. So Barney, you have to understand, Barney, this was like real like garage band, rock and roll kind of stuff that we were doing. And we had this old 64 Econoline van. And so we go pile in the van, Barney and I, we go down the hill to our little one-room house in Sherman Oaks. And we go, what are we going to do? Because Barney had been out on the road before quite a bit. And he wasn't really interested in going back out. And I was going for an artist deal at the time. So I didn't, you become a road musician, you tend to lose your career often. And so we both thought, we don't want to do this. So we thought, what can we do and not burn a bridge, right? So we thought we came up with a brilliant plan. And we thought, okay, we'll just tell him that we need a certain amount and he won't go for it, And that way we don't burn a bridge and we don't lose space and all that kind of stuff. So we went back the next day, and he said, "So what do you think?" And we said, "Well, man, we'd love to do it, but we're going to need this."
Yeah.
And he goes, "Okay, yeah, I'll have my secretary do."
Wait, I didn't think this through. I didn't think that would work.
I know, but you have to understand context. We were in these crazy rock and roll bands and stuff, and a lot of times we were playing for $10 a night and all the free tap beer you could drink. So I don't think what we asked for was so outrageous.
Yeah. So was that your husband at the time? You were already married?
We were already married, and that was a cool thing because we had both made a conscious decision not to go out on the road without each other.
Yeah.
He'd done enough of it. And so when I came into his life, that was one of those things I thought, that works for me.
You got to do it together.
Yeah. And then a little time after that, he asked Barney to be in his band. So Barney was in his band. And then a few months down the road, he came up. I used to stand off on the side of the stage after I did Jesse's show, and I'd watch his show. And I'd come up with these parts in my head, right? Just for fun. I love the idea of being invisible. And so I was standing over there, and Waylon, once again, he walked up behind me and he said, "Hey, how about you come out and sing with me tonight?" And I was like, okay, which song? And he goes, "All of them."
Every single one.
So I always tell people in this show, it was unusual because here I was following this man out onto the stage, and this was the Outlaw Era, the booming part of it. And so it was very testosterone driven. There weren't very many females singers in those bands at all. And so I'm following him out there. Nobody knew anything about it. Waylon would always do that. He'd throw you in, figured if you're going to run with him, you better be able to, make some quick moves. So I went out there and I was scared to death. And I chose not to sing on all the songs. So all the time I had spent coming up with these parts, I just added on the songs that I thought I could add something to. And it worked. By the end of the show, history was made, and I was a female member of the Wailers, which is...
That is history, especially in such an outlaw era, like you said, such a male-dominated time. Was that difficult for you at times, being the only woman on the road? Well, I guess you did have Jesse there sometimes on the road. Yes,
but they had their own bus. And so when we first started working with them, it was one bus, and Waylon and Jesse were in the back, and then we had like these bunks in the middle and all that kind of stuff. But then when they got their own bus, I was the only, I wasn't necessarily the only girl on the road, but I was the only girl in the band.
Mm-hmm.
And so there were a couple other people that were out there. Sherry Burke, she was T-shirt girl, and boy, did she ever know how to sell merch.
Yeah.
She was great. Anyway, and so, it's funny. Richie Albright was Waylon's drummer and right-hand man and producer, did a lot of producing. An amazing human being, and we lost him just a couple of years ago, which is devastating. But I think I was out there 2 weeks, and I may not have been the youngest out there if you counted like crew or something like that, because sometimes kids come out. But I was definitely the youngest in the band, and he started calling me Mama Carter, because I was just one of those people that wants to take care of everybody and take care of things. And so here I was, this young girl, and that has stuck to this very
Mama
day.
Carter.
I'll get calls from the guys that are, hey, Mama, how you doing?
Yeah.
So
They needed that feminine energy out there, somebody to keep them in line.
yeah, and sometimes if you handle it just right, you can get by with something that somebody else can't.
Mm-hmm.
So
well, you went on to record with several artists, Kristofferson, Willie Nelson. You sang on their albums as well.
Well, I would sing from time to time, like like they'd come into the studio and they'd need a background, and so I would do that. That was kind of cool. I got to do a thing with Kris. It was actually, what was that album? It was after Waylon passed, and they brought in a bunch of different artists and a bunch of different people to sing certain songs. And so Kris did a couple of those songs, and they put me on there with him. So that was cool. It was an honor.
Another tough loss this year with Kris. So.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
It's hard. It's really, really hard. These people, they're not only your peer group or the people that you've worked with or whatever, but there's a sense of family there, and to lose part of your family, it's hard. It's really difficult. That's why when we created this show, Running with Old Waylon, I just said, hey, I feel like we have a window, and you have band members that have all this history and all these memories, and they're the ones that recorded the hits, and we all were, a part of this very iconic group that really did change the boundaries of country music, and we're all still around, and we're all still able to do this. We need to do it now, and we're not. There's a lot of tribute shows, and they're great and great musicians and great people, and not putting that down at all, but it's rare that you find actual band members doing the show, and these guys are some of the best. And so it's when you get a chance to go see it, I highly recommend it, because you don't take anything for granted. Go see them, go hear their stories, hear our stories.
Yeah,
it's a pretty magical time. My gosh, what we went through. Thank God we're still alive.
Yeah.
But pretty cool.
That's incredible. I'm sure you have the best memories and some crazy memories too. You wrote a book about some of this.
Yeah.
Playing on the tracks.
Yeah, that's right.
Is that kind of some of the things that we talked about in that book?
There are. It's a lot more in depth, obviously, than what we've talked about. But I started out writing that book for my daughters. My daughters were a musical group as well. They came to us and said they wanted to be a musical group, and we said, "Oh, that's nice." No, and
No.
nah. But they were grown up and they do whatever they wanted.
Yeah.
But I wrote it for them because I felt like they needed to know where they come from. And so it starts out, obviously, the first part of my life, and then there's a good section of the book, the second half, that's Waylon. And, I just think it's important to pass these things on to the next generation. Don't homogenize them, tell the truth. And I just think there's so much grace in the story when you actually live through things. If you tell it like it is and learn from it and pass it on so that others can learn from it, I think there's a treasure there that is very powerful. So
I can't wait to read it.
Well, good.
I could just sit here and talk to you all day. So I'm like, I could only imagine. Do your daughters still want to be singers?
They were with Toby Keith for about 7 years.
Wow.
Yeah. And so now, and they, that sister harmony, it's just so, I love it. I love hearing that. But that was a while ago, and they decided to start their families. So they have gifted Barney and I with 8 grandchildren that are just rock stars in their own. They're just so cute. Oh my gosh. And everybody lives here, And so when we get together, it's loud and wonderful.
Oh, yeah.
So,
well, congrats.
Thank you.
Sounds so wonderful. They get it honest. Both mom and dad were famous musicians, so I'm sure you'll have some grandkids growing up to sing as well.
They are doing it.
Y'all got any holiday Christmas plans?
Oh, well, of course. I mean, we just came. My oldest daughter, she's married to Jeremiah Scott, who is in Demon Hunter, which is a heavy metal band. So they have this awesome place out in Eagleville, about 17 acres. So on Thanksgiving, they have us all out there. So that was a blast. It was so wonderful. And then in December, we do a thing where we decorate cookies and we go caroling. And then we do this huge annual Robertson open house Christmas party. And then since my daughters all married men out of state, I didn't want them to feel like they always had to be here on Christmas Day. So I started this thing with our family called PJ's Presents and Brunch. And so everybody comes over in their jammies and we eat brunch and we open, presents. And so that'll happen. And then it'll also be Christmas Day. So there's a lot.
Oh, that's fun. PJs and brunch. What more could you ask for?
I know.
And family.
I know. It's awesome.
That's so great.
So much fun.
We are looking forward to this Chiefs on Broadway show. Catch Carter with Waymore's Outlaws on December 28th. Tickets available at chiefsonbroadway.com. Carter, is there anything that we didn't touch on that you want our listeners to know? A way to keep up with you, maybe a website?
Yeah, you can go to Waymore's Outlaws on Facebook. We've got a lot of shows coming up, and I would really encourage you to follow Shooter Jennings. He's found this. He found some music. We used to go into the studio and record, but never release certain songs. So we would just go in there and camp out, and record. Well, he found this treasure trove of unreleased music that he called some of us back to Hollywood a couple months ago, and we all started working on it. And Barney's there. It's weird. It was a trip because he's playing with his younger self. He's putting on an organ overdub where his younger self is playing something, and I'm singing with Waylon, and then I got to sing with Gordon Payne, who was also a member of the Wailers, and so we worked on all of this. So he's got some really cool stuff that he is putting together that's coming out, and he is he's actually, I'm not sharing anything that he hasn't already shared, but be looking for that because it's really awesome.
That is really cool. We can't wait to hear that. Thank you so much for coming by and hanging out with us.
Oh, thank you.
You are an icon. You are a legend.
Oh, well, thank you. That makes me feel really old. No, no, I'm
You're just
grateful.
getting started.
I worked hard for this, and I just want to encourage all the young girls, all the women, all the people out there, all the men, all the boys coming up. You know what? If you have a gift that you like to do, if you're a singer or a player or a writer, whether you're performing in front of thousands or on your front porch, do it, because that's what you were designed to do. So I would just say, embrace what you are, who you are, and then, share that with other people because we need it.
We need it. Amen.
Amen.
Carter Robertson, everybody.